This podcast is part of the Robots Radio Rocket Club, a program designed to help all podcasts reach their full potential. For information about joining the Robots Radio Rocket Club, check out robotsradio.net.
Hello, and welcome to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. My name is Austin, also known as Teacup.
And my name is Shelby, also known as She-Cup.
Join us as we embark on unraveling all of your favorite mysteries from the Assassin's Creed universe. From Assassins to Templars to the mysterious Isu and more. We will seek to uncover it all, so join us and maybe even take a leap of faith.
Hello, and welcome to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. My name is Shelby. You might also know me by the name of She-Cup, and I am your co-host and guide for this podcast. And I'm also here with my co-host, and I will let him introduce himself.
Yes, I am Austin, also known as Teacup. I am your gaming expert, lore enthusiast for the games.
Lore nerd is also an acceptable substitution.
True. So, yeah.
Well, so I know we're continuing our Assassins versus Templars series, but before we do that, should we talk about my playthrough?
If you so desire.
Okay, that was a weird way to say yes or no.
Whatever you want.
Well, yeah, so my current playthrough, I am still in Assassin's Creed 2. I finished Florence. I'm almost done with Tuscany, and I think I'm going to be moving on to whatever the next location is fairly soon. Right, Austin?
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe I'm still in the middle of something. We'll see. But I'm definitely liking it so far. The story has intrigued me more than Assassin's Creed 1 has.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing your playthrough. We'll keep us updated on your fun.
Okay, well, let's get into what we're actually talking about today.
All right. Well, today we're continuing our Assassins versus Templar series. We're just keeping going down the line. So last week we ended kind of at the turn of the century in England. And we're staying in Europe for where we're going today, which is the war to end all wars. World War I.
Spoiler alert, it did not end all the wars.
Yes, but at the time it certainly did feel like that. So to begin, before we even get to World War I, we're going to go all the way back to ancient Egypt.
Interesting.
Yes. So when Bayek of Siwa visits a site in Egypt, he triggers an encoded message inaudible to him from an unidentified female Isu that foretold of future historical events, among which were a labyrinth of trenches filled with mud and mustard gas.
So that's obviously a reference to World War I.
Right.
But could it be a reference to World War II?
Unlikely, because just from historical, like there were trenches and stuff in World War II, but it wasn't as much trench warfare as World War I. Plus mustard gas comes into popular use in World War I.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, that just kind of just shows more this like Isu foreseeing into the future with these messages. Apparently, Bayek doesn't hear that message. The only people who are able to hear it would be Layla, who's in the main animus.
Interesting.
I don't remember that.
I don't either. It looks like this quest is in the Nome area, which I think I don't remember exploring very much of that area. So
Right. So anyway, so that's a little like precursor to all the way back in Egypt. We see the Isu already foresee this great war. So for you history nerds, World War II or World War One really kind of begins. There's a lot building up to it, but it begins on June 28th of 1914, following the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. And this war breaks out all over Europe between the Allied powers, which are France, England, and Russia, and then eventually the US. And the Central Powers, which are Austria, Hungary, Germany, and briefly Italy. Lots of stuff going on, right?
Yeah, it's a important and scary time.
Yes. So naturally, this is not really instigated by the Templars or Assassins, but they take hold of this conflict. So Assassins, desperate to keep the hold that they have in these areas, Russia, France, and England, and the United States to some extent, desperate to keep the hold they have on these areas, they start enlisting into the army. Many assassins flock and join the British Army from the British Brotherhood. And so you have this classic thing where you got the Templars on one side with the Central Powers in Germany and Austria-Hungary, and then you have the Assassins on the Allied powers, which France, United States, Britain.
It's so interesting to me, though, that the Assassins by this point in time, or that the Templars really they've allied more with the Central Powers and not the Allied powers, when I feel like their stronghold really is in the UK and in Britain specifically. So it's interesting to me that that's kind of flip-flopped. And I wonder, honestly, if it's not just like a writing device that they use to basically say or imply even and make sure that, okay, Assassin's good, Templar's bad.
Yes. Well, remember that fast forward 20 or rewind 20 years, 30 years, the Fry twins take down the British Templar Order and take London for the Assassins.
Yeah, I did forget about that.
Yeah. So that has flip-flopped, and France has historically almost always been an assassin hub. So we know a lot about the various conflicts. We know our history that there's an intense warfare. Mustard gas is used with this trench warfare with harsh living conditions, and it is a bloody, bloody, bloody conflict. It is the largest loss that the world has seen up until this point, with each side taking losses in the millions by the end of the war. And that's why it really talks about it like the war to end all wars. And so we get to a point here where the Assassins and Templars are basically like, they think this is it. Whoever wins this war is going to win the Assassin-Templar War.
That's interesting. I definitely understand where they're coming from and why they would think that, but just the hindsight is funny.
Yes. So there are just two major events that we know of that I'll go through really quickly. So I'm sure we've all heard the famous story of the Christmas truce of 1914. Both you and I grew up Christian, and I cannot tell you how many Christmas Eve sermons I've heard that talk about the Christmas truce of 1914.
I'm pretty sure there's also a movie about it.
I think you're right.
Like an old black and white kind of thing that would play on like the channel that plays MASH reruns all the time.
Right. But, there's the famous story of it's Christmas Eve or whatever, and they cross into no man's land and they sing Silent Night together. That's what happened. Well, something not so truce-oriented happens during that. So, a Templar by the name of Eirik Albert, who is a general in the German army, is assassinated by an unnamed British assassin just moments after the two who had worked together to save a wounded soldier's life. So the assassins take this opportunity to end this Templar's life during the Christmas truce.
Do we know why they did this?
Probably, it's probably just the thing of an assassin takes the opportunity when they need it.
It's interesting. The whole story and the whole mythos around the Christmas truce isn't entirely accurate anyway. Like, they probably didn't know exactly when Christmas was. They wouldn't have understood each other because of the language barriers. Like, there's a lot of situational contexts that don't necessarily make this story line up 100% anyways. But I do think that it's an important story we tell ourselves to remind each other that there is hope even in the darkest of times. And I still think it's valuable because of that. So for me, this kind of insertion of war back into the narrative of truce kind of lessens that for me.
Yeah. It's not my favorite thing, but it's what happens. So, in 1916, so this is 2 year, at the behest of Winston Churchill, who? Is... I don't know what his political position is at this point. He's not prime minister.
Are you sure?
Is he prime minister before and after Neville Chamberlain?
Dude,
know more. You know more about that period of British history than I do.
I'm going to be honest. The only thing I know about British history involves the royal family. And I'm going to be also honest. I don't understand how their parliament works. So I don't really know anything about them at all. If there are any listeners out there who want to explain this to me, gladly welcome it. But yeah, I also don't really care.
Right. So anyway, at the behest of Winston Churchill, the assassin Lydia Fyre, who is the granddaughter of Jacob Fyre, she is employed to eliminate a German spy ring operating around the Tower Bridge near the Tower of London. So similar, we all have the stories of the German bombing raids on London in World War II. There's kind of similar things that are happening across like the English Channel and similar points of Germany kind of pushing into London in the same way. And so they send this ring, the Templars send this ring of German spies to help Lydia, or to like try to disrupt the English war effort. And so Lydia Fyre just happens upon Winston Churchill while she's hunting a Templar, and she kills him. And then Churchill is like, "Hey, we need to take care of these German spies. Why don't you do it for me?" And so the spy ring was led by a Templar master spy. That was just the master spy. We're not told a name, who eventually falls to Lydia's blade. We learn that this Templar is something called a sage, which I think we've briefly talked about on the Lorecast before, but just a refresher, a sage is someone who bears the soul of an Isu. So it's different than like Connor or Desmond, who have high concentrations of Isu DNA. This person holds the soul and consciousness of an Isu. Typically a specific Isu, which is Aida, the husband of Juno.
So do we see this in the games?
Yes.
As well, sages?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Is this part of the Valhalla story?
Yes, it is part of the Valhalla story, but that's a little different than what these specific sages are. And so this is a point because in the game, because remember, all the historical stuff we're experiencing as someone's shifting through someone's memory with intermittent like Isu breaking up and entering these memory like viewings with their own stuff. So Juno is the one who actually shows us this memory.
Interesting. Why does she do that?
Well, at this point, this is a little spoiler, but at this point, the instruments of the first will are trying to recreate, and Abstergo are trying to recreate a Isu body, trying to recreate an Isu, which is why they're focusing on memories in London, because they're looking for what's called the Shroud of Eden, because they believe its healing properties will help them build an Isu.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah. But a sage has an extraordinary amount of Isu DNA, like well beyond any living descendant with Isu DNA. So it'd be like the closest thing they have to actually having an Isu in front of them with a sage. Right. So the important thing about a sage is that they are both a new person who lives with their own memories, but they also contain the memories of that Isu. And that is passed down in the generations. So throughout history, there are several sages. There's a sage in Black Flag. There's a sage in Assassin's Creed 3, though that was before we even knew what sages were. There's a sage in Unity and Syndicate.
Okay, so are sages born or are they created?
They are born.
So how do they end up with so much DNA from the Isu?
It is really complicated, and that's for a whole nother episode for how that works. But it's like some sort of conscious conscious transference and things like that.
Okay, that sounds weird. We can move on.
Yes. So that's really all we know about World War One. So the conflict ends in 1918, so there's only 2 more years after this, and the U.S. is about to get involved, and once the U.S. gets involved, the war goes a lot quicker.
Right.
Just mainly because this is kind of how the U.S. plays both wars. We let Britain and France take the brunt of it, and when they're exhausted, we come in and just be like, look at us, we're the heroes.
Yeah, which is, I think it's kind of annoying, but we'll move on.
Back home at least, or back in the United States, there was a lot of debate with Congress on whether we should get involved in this or not.
Right.
Kind of our transition from what's called the age of isolation. Which my research didn't show this, but I would assume that the assassins in the Americas are the ones pushing Congress to declare war so that they can go and get support for the assassins in Europe. Especially since there's this idea that this is going to be the war to end all wars.
Right.
The world doesn't stop for World War One. Like, other things keep going on in these other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get into that. And one important thing is that Russia historically pulls out of World War One because of their revolution that's going to come about.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And we're going to talk about that because World War One and the Russian Revolution really set the stage for World War II to happen.
It's a bold claim.
Well, think about it. Like the countries are basically the same on each side for World War II.
Yes, they are, but I feel like World War II really happens because of the way that like Germany is treated and, you know, the extreme taxes that lead to their total like economic breakdown. And then, you know, Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party are able to come in and blame that on the Jewish people and other groups that they quote find undesirable.
Right.
So I don't know if it's fair to just say like Russia is the reason that World War II happens.
No, but my point is that it's helping set the stage for what Russia will be for World War II.
Sure, that's totally agree.
And this is an important thing, you know, it's this idea that this is the war to end all wars. And we're about to enter a pretty like prosperous economic time right before a really not prosperous economic time with the Roaring '20s in most of the world, except for Germany, really. And so I think that this is also a point that I would say, you know, Lydia Fyre meets Churchill, and I'm sure that the Assassins with their establishment, they've started putting more political visors in the ear of Woodrow Wilson and all these other people, even though the U.S. isn't going to take place in the Treaty of Versailles. So I think that the Assassins in this point probably take a little vindictiveness on this to end all wars and are trying to create a state where they think the Templars won't rise to power again.
Mm. Yeah, I definitely see that.
Which is like, I think one of the failures of both orders is that when they have a big win, they let arrogance take over to think that they've really defeated their enemy.
Right.
Una silla de masajes puede parecer extravagante. 8 configuraciones diferentes, intensidad ajustable, además es calefaccionado. Y se siente tan bien. Sí, una silla de masajes puede parecer extravagante. Y 2, bueno, aún más. Pero cuando esas sillas de masajes vienen con un auto, se vuelven bastante prácticas. El nuevo Volkswagen Tiguan 2025 con funciones premium como los asientos delanteros con masaje disponibles. Solo parece extravagante.
Prime delivery is fast. How fast are we talking? We're talking puzzle toys and lick pad delivered so fast you can get this puppy under control fast. We're talking chew toys at your door without really waiting fast. Pee pads, cooling mat, and peg hammer fast and fast. And there's training TREATS faster than you can say sit fast. And now we can all relax and order these matching hoodies to get cozy and cute fast. Fast, free delivery. It's on Prime.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Yeah, so anyway, that's really all we have about World War I. I think now would be a good time for a break.
Okay, well, welcome to the break. This is the middle of the show. This is where we talk about all things that have to do with the Assassin's Creed lorecast and not the lore of Assassin's Creed. So the first thing I always tell you is that the number one way to support us is to like, share, subscribe, and tell other people about our show. And the number 2 way to support us right now is to rate and review us. You can leave us a rating with words on Apple. You don't have to listen on Apple. You just have to have an account. And if you leave us a 5-star review on Apple, we will read it out on the show. Or you can give us a rating just with numbers on Spotify. Both are super, super helpful to us and really help our rankings in the show. And then the next thing I have to tell you about is our Discord server. We have a server called The Cups Podcasting and More. It's the official home of all of our podcasts, including this one, the Dragon Age Lorecast, and Austin's other show, Holocron Histories. You can find us on that server, talk to other people about our shows and episodes, and also just share fun memes and pictures of your pets and just hang out with other people who have similar gaming interests as you. Or you can join the Robots Radio Discord server. And Robots Radio is the home of all the Robots Radio and Robots Radio Rocket Club shows, of which we are a part. And if you want to hang out with a bunch of cool people and maybe even find a few new podcasts, the Robots Radio server is where it's at. Do we have anything else for the mid-break, or is that everything, Austin?
I think that's everything.
All right. Well, this was a short one this week, but let's get back to the episode.
Hit pause on whatever you're listening to and hit play on your next adventure. Stay 2 nights and get a $50 Best Western gift card. Life's a trip. Make the most of it at Best Western. Visit bestwestern.com for complete terms and conditions.
All right. So as I said, Russia has to withdraw from World War I because of a revolution that is about to take place in their country. So yeah, we're going to talk about that as a brief kind of end to the episode. And then next week, we'll continue on with World War II. But let's get into the Russian Revolution. So in 1917, after the First War brought Russia to near collapse because wars are expensive, the Russian Revolution broke out. The assassins supported the people's desire for a new government and pressured the Tsar Nicholas II to abdicate. So while this is known as the Russian Revolution, it actually is composed of a series of smaller revolutions between warring factions within the changing Russian nation. So as this is going on, different groups are coming up to basically say, hey, this is a change, this is a change, this is a change. Basically until one group comes, the Bolsheviks. So the leader, which is Vladimir Lenin, he is friends with Nikolai Orlov, who he asked to kill Nicholas II. So Nikolai is unwilling to comply because he doesn't feel that Nicholas II deserves to die. He doesn't feel like he is an oppressive ruler. The assassins just support, the desire for the people to dictate what kind of government they want, which is very assassin.
Yeah, I think it totally tracks that the assassins would be not on the side of the royal family in this case.
And this is a point, Jacob and Lydia Fyre back in the day are big friends of Karl Marx, which is kind of like where the ideology with the Bolsheviks comes in. So the assassins are already kind of been exposed to this socialism, communism, whatever you want to call it, ideology with their friendship with Karl Marx back in England. So the assassin basically, he agrees to infiltrate the residence only to determine if the Tsar's new scepter was a staff of Eden. So the assassin, Nikolai, he spares Nicholas's life, and Nicholas II tells him about Rasputin's mysterious shard, which happens to be a piece of the staff of Eden. So Nikolai kills Rasputin, and takes the artifact, and he plans to leave Russia to start a new family. With the disarray, the Bolsheviks seize control of Russia after the October Revolution. In reward for their support, Lenin and the Russian Academy of Sciences awarded the assassins several of the Academy's facilities, which is very, very important, and I'll talk about in the legacy, but this sets up the Russian Brotherhood to be a headquarters of research.
Fascinating.
Yes. So in 1918, so we're nearing the end of World War I, Nikolai took up one final task from the Brotherhood to retrieve a piece of Eden, a precursor box from the possession of the imperial family. After Nikolai infiltrated the Imperial House, the Templars murdered the Imperial family to obtain the artifact, while only the Tsar's daughter, Anastasia, survived.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I have one very important question, and that is, does Anastasia survive or no?
Yes.
So this, she does.
She survives the attack on the Tsar's family.
Right.
From the Templars. So she meets Nikolai with the precursor box. And when the box comes in contact with the splinter of the staff that Nikolai got from Rasputin, it transfers the consciousness of Jun to Anastasia, which is another assassin. So this is another point of consciousness being transferred via pieces of Eden.
Okay, so just to clarify, this consciousness that's being transferred is not an Isu god. This is another assassin's consciousness that's being transferred.
Correct.
So that's interesting.
Right. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of a precursor to the bleeding effect, basically.
Okay.
Because remember, the bleeding effect is basically that you can't separate the past from the present or the future or whatever. And so it's all bleeding into whatever.
The same.
Yes. And so it's kind of like a similar thing that happens. An Isu sage just has a kind of more streamlined ability to do this. But, many sages go mad because of the consciousness that's inside their head.
No, I didn't know that. They, lose their mind. But I think it makes sense that they would. They're not, just because they're Isu, and I don't know if God is the right terminology for them, but it makes sense. Like they're not impervious to harm. So it makes sense that they would be affected as well.
Right. And it's normally a case of the mind and experience of the human who they're sharing with is in competition for control. Anastasia is then brought back to the Assassin's Brotherhood with the box to Moscow. Well, the Assassins are not good people.
Sure, as we know.
Yes. So instead of caring for this woman or young teenager, probably at this point, I'm very confused about her age at the time her family is killed.
Honestly, she could still have been a child.
Right. So instead of caring for this person who suffered a hugely traumatic event, the assassins imprison her instead.
That tracks.
Yeah. So this obviously does not sit well with Nikolai. He betrays the Brotherhood and rescues her, gives her new identification papers belonging to an Anna Anderson, and then Nikolai leaves Russia again with his family. And then after Lenin's death in 1924, the Russian assassins faced oppositions from a new Soviet government led by Joseph Stalin. A Templar puppet of Yuri Petrovich Fichtnager, a Templar in Poltavaro, started a counter-revolutionary commission to hunt down the assassins and turn the Russian Academy of Sciences into a Stalinist organization, forcing the assassin mentor to go into hiding.
I have two thoughts. Number one, I'm very impressed by your attempting of the names.
Russian is hard.
Thought number two, this is basically the plot of Anastasia.
Yeah.
At least the beginning part, where before she tries to find her long lost family or whatever. But
I do think it's interesting that it would be very easy to fall into the narrative and make all of communist Russia like the Templars.
Yeah.
But they don't do that.
I mean, they're pretty close though.
Yeah. And I think that this is a point where we see that different cultural contexts interpret the creed differently.
Mm-hmm. Say more.
Just that the Russian assassins tend to be a little more brutal. They tend to be a little more success by any means necessary. Which kind of just tracks with the culture that they grow up with, and the concept I feel like the Assassin's Creed, like its creed is very easy to understand from a Western European, Western Civ point of view. But when you take it and you put it into contexts that are not that, it buds up against what people are used to experiencing.
I definitely see that point of view, but I also wonder if we're not giving enough credence to the fact that these people are in times of severe war, because I think war would be more brutal too. I don't think it's just cultural. I think it might be a little bit unfair just to categorize Russian culture as necessarily a brutal culture, which I'm not saying you do that, but I think that could be an implication of what you just said. So I think war and the presence of it and the overwhelming presence of such a terrifying war, as well as a revolution in your own country, has a tendency to make people more prone to violence than they normally would be.
I think that's fair. It's a fair point. And I also think that another important fact is that Russia is now set up as this research country. And Russia, the Russian assassins are very much like an experimental assassin brotherhood. I mean, it is the Moscow assassins who William Miles gives the Animus plans to. And if you remember from our Animus episode, that's the experiment that basically drives the Brotherhood mad and turns them into cold-blooded killers.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And I think there's a lot of desperation in these assassins and Templars in this time period because they think this is the time. Like, if we lose here, we've lost forever.
Yeah, and when you have desperate people, they are more willing to sacrifice themselves and other people and their country and, all kinds of things.
I mean, look at William Miles and Clay Kazmarek.
Yeah.
It's a perfect example of that desperation.
Absolutely.
And so really kind of the legacy of this is it basically sets up the Assassins and Templars to be in another conflict about, 10 years down the road. And that conflict projects both groups into where they're going to be in the 21st century.
Interesting.
And yeah, so we'll talk about, World War II. There will be a little bit of kind of double lapping with the Animus episode. So if you want to refresh yourself on some stuff from the Animus episode, that'd definitely be helpful. But World War II is coming. And if you thought World War I was the war to end all wars, just buckle up, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. You ain't seen nothing yet, huh?
Right. And this really sets up kind of where the Templars are going to go with becoming Abstergo. Which the Abstergo identity is a very new one for this conflict. And I hope that this series has kind of shown that where the Templars now is very different than where they were historically. And whereas historically they've infiltrated other established organizations, with Abstergo, they have made their own establishment that they can hide behind and control power from.
Yikes.
So, yeah, that's really all we got for this episode. It's a little shorter, but that's okay.
That's okay, yeah. Well, thanks for joining us on the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. We will see you next week.
All right. Thanks for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. You can find us on Twitter at Assassin's Creed Lorecast, or you could talk to us on Discord in the Robots Radio Discord or our personal Discord server, both links found in this episode's descriptions. Thank you for listening, and always stay to the shadows to serve the light, Assassins.
This episode is brought to you by FX's Alien Earth, the official podcast. Each week, host Adam Rogers is joined by guests, including the show's creator, cast, and crew, in this exclusive companion podcast. They will explore story elements, deep dive into character motivations, and offer an episode-by-episode behind-the-scenes breakdown of each terrifying chapter in this new series. Search FX's Alien Earth wherever you listen to podcasts.
How well do you know your video game lovers?
Have you ever wondered how your video game bays stack up against all the other delectable digital dates?
I'm Genesis, the girl whose motto in life is love, laugh, tequila. And on Two Girls, One Ship, we analyze, rate, and review all that the world of video game romances has to offer.
And I'm Vervada, the hopeless romantic cat lady and lifelong gamer.
But you should know that our podcast centers on character and romance analysis and doesn't shy away from exploring the fun of physical connection.
Or from the deep emotional connections built between two characters, using specific in-game dialogue and the overall narrative journey. So join the Two Girls, One Ship shipsters, and remember,
beauty is in the eye of the controller.